Women who are so particular and opinionated and spiky that you no longer can project.
Why is everyone still mad? I've already apologized. I've used the age excuse. I've said I'm just a girl.
They're uncomfortably too human in a theater kid-esque, feely type way.
Okay, what in the theater kid was that? We don't hate to see you win. That's kind of self-absorbed and narcissistic.
I think people would love Rachel if she'd stayed hot and unknowable.
I think you're gonna need more than just hope. I think you better pray. Listen, I'm not trying to absolve myself from the dumb things I've said online. They're still dumb, but I was just a baby.
I don't know, but I just have never expected protection from.
It started with whispers, and within 48 hours, it exploded into a cultural firestorm. Rachel Zegler's Evita, already on thin ice after walkouts, refund demands, and accusations of performative politics, is now facing something far more serious.
I think that in the future, when we reflect on what happened, it is going to come to be known as the girl bosses who flew too close to the sun, okay? People say that. This is an example of that. Girl boss, I'm a girl boss. I can do whatever I want. Men ain't bleep. Men are terrible, whatever. We can do whatever we want in this era.
A petition calling for the entire production to be shut down has just crossed 100,000 signatures. That's not a typo. 100,000 people in just over a day have signed a document saying they've had enough. They believe the show is an insult, a distortion, a disaster that disrespects everything Evita was meant to represent.
The narcissist is going to remain a one-person wrecking crew. Please protect yourself, as their rage and their manipulation can literally make you sick, both mentally and physically. And not calling them out is not enabling. A lot of people say, if I don't call them out, then I'm part of the problem. They're already enabled, and you calling them out in a strange way enables them more.
And what's worse is that it's not just trolls or haters signing it. Verified theater critics and even fans of Zegler herself are saying the same thing. They believe this show crossed a line. If you've ever seen Evita, you know it's a challenging part to play, and many feel she doesn't have the presence, the stamina, or whatever word you want to use, to pull it off night after night. The petition reads like a manifesto, accusing the West End adaptation of erasing historical nuance, forcing modern ideology into a sacred legacy, and casting a lead who doesn't fully understand the role. It's brutal, and yet it's clearly resonating.
Literally no idea why he's covered in cake, frosting, goop, slime at the end of the show. What I do love, though, is everybody trying to figure out why it's happening and what the context is. And look, I haven't seen the show. I don't know why it's happening. But the theories are incredible. Some people saying the blue and white represents the Argentinian flag. That's yes, but why is it goopy? I don't know. If you were at the first preview of Evita, or any of Evita, if you know anything about Evita and why he's covered in stuff, let us know.
Social media is already calling this the most embarrassing flop in recent musical history, and not because of ticket sales alone. This goes deeper. Audiences are accusing the show of being a woke rebranding project disguised as art. One TikTok rant says you did not modernize her story, you buried it under ego and politics. And with every passing hour, the backlash keeps growing.
There's a lot of discourse right now about how Jamie Lloyd's production of Evita starring Rachel Zegler looks a lot like his production of Sunset Boulevard. And people are like, oh, is he just doing the same thing again? I saw a video just now from the creator Matt Seiler, which I totally agree with, and I'll link it in the caption, where he's talking about how, it doesn't bother me when an artist's work looks like their other work. That's just called having an artistic voice. And I would take that even further and say that it's important to have some context about the style that Jamie Lloyd is working in. I would characterize Jamie Lloyd's work as following in the tradition of European Regie Theater. And if you don't know Regie Theater, it's a German word that originated in opera that literally means director's theater. So describing the practice of, directors having an immense amount of creative control over the production.
And just 10 days ago, this production was being positioned as Zegler's grand comeback, a chance to move past the Snow White chaos and prove to the world that she was still a star. But now, critics are using words like career killer.
It's like I'm a very mentally ill piece of...
Oh boy. This might explain some of the comments she's been making lately.
Fans are demanding apologies, and industry insiders are already whispering that the producers are in crisis mode, watching their million-pound gamble turn into a viral catastrophe. But this is only the beginning, because as the signatures keep climbing, A deeper controversy is starting to rise from the shadows, and it is no longer just about theater anymore. The most viral clip shows a young couple whispering, "Is this satire?" as Rachel Zegler delivers one of Eva Perón's most iconic lines, allegedly rewritten to include updated feminist buzzwords that were never part of the original. That clip alone gained over 6 million views in just 24 hours. But it was not just the rewrites drawing attention. Multiple reports have claimed that even the applause at the end of the performance was not real.
Rachel Zegler, her stock is through the roof after this movie.
I can't believe it. I very much had no interest in seeing Rachel Zegler in any movies heading into this. And watching this made me forget that I really don't like her as an actress.
All is forgiven with the Snow White controversy. Maybe I'm going to show up for it. I thought she was fantastic.
She was really funny.
A leaked memo, reportedly from inside the production, revealed that cast members were instructed to start clapping on cue to avoid what producers feared could be an awkward silence. Then came the critic reviews, and they were merciless. One outlet described the show as a political lecture wrapped in glitter. Another said Zegler delivers her lines like she is still on a press tour, not a stage. The energy in the theater community flipped fast. What was once marketed as bold and brave now feels like a tone-deaf misfire.
Go, Quinn.
The worst part is that the creative team did not seem to see it coming. According to an anonymous crew member, there were warnings during rehearsals, concerns that the tone of the show did not align with the legacy of Eva Perón. But those concerns were allegedly ignored. There was too much riding on Zegler's image rehab. The source said the whole production was built around her, and they could not change anything, even if it meant risking the entire show. While critics were ripping the show apart, something much bigger was quietly building in the background. Within hours, it exploded. It began as just another frustrated post from a fan venting about the state of modern theater, but by the next morning, it was front-page news. Shutdown, the West and Evita revival. The headline read, beneath it was a detailed and furious indictment of everything the show had become. The author of the petition, identifying as a longtime Evita fan and Argentine native, did not hold back. They accused the production of westernizing a revolutionary icon, erasing cultural nuance, and casting an actress who used Eva's name to boost her brand rather than honor her legacy. It was harsh, but it struck a nerve. The petition exploded. Thousands of signatures poured in by the hour, then tens of thousands. By day 2, it had passed 100,000. The comments were brutal. One signer wrote that this is not Evita, it is Instagram theater. Another said they grew up hearing their grandmother talk about Eva Perón, and she would be heartbroken by this version. Perhaps the most damning comment stated that Rachel Zegler made this about herself, not Argentina or history. That is when the hashtag #NotMe started trending. Prominent theater bloggers, Latinx influencers, and even some Broadway veterans began to weigh in. Some were polite, but many were not. One critic wrote that this was the musical theater version of rewriting Martin Luther King's story with TikTok slang. It was not progressive, they said. It was disrespectful. Zegler's silence only made things worse. No statements, no apology, no clarification. That silence quickly filled with speculation. Some believed she did not care. Others thought she knew this would happen. The harshest theory was that the controversy was part of the plan. One theater YouTuber said it best. They wanted headlines, and now they have them. But this is no longer just about Rachel. Voices from across the world are now speaking up, And the anger has shifted from personal to cultural. Eva Perón was not just a role. She was, and still is, a symbol of pride, struggle, and perseverance for millions in Latin America, especially in Argentina, where her memory carries revolutionary weight. So when Rachel Zegler stepped on stage dressed in modern glam, armed with rewritten lines, many saw it as more than a creative choice. They saw it as theft. Ratings critics from Buenos Aires to Los Angeles began to speak out. Articles emerged accusing the show of flattening Eva's legacy into a watered-down version for Western audiences.
Writers lean so hard into feminism that they circle back around to misogyny. I still don't follow. A character learning from their mistakes is the most compelling thing that they can do. So many writers are so hung up on writing a strong, capable woman that they don't let her make any mistakes to learn from. Because women always have to be perfect. Exactly, that's why we so rarely see girl boss characters being held accountable for their actions. Things get blamed on the people around them, society, emotional trauma, and they never take personal responsibility. I never thought of it that way. A lot of writers don't like showing the strong female character as flawed and in need of personal growth. And that's very unsatisfying to viewers and readers.
On TikTok, a young Argentinian woman went viral after crying while watching clips of the performance. "That is not her," she said. "That is not who we grew up honoring. This is cosplay." Even prominent academics joined the conversation. A cultural historian from Mexico City wrote a long post explaining how Western productions often erase the complexity of Latin icons, turning them into simplified heroes for mass consumption. Eva, they said, is the latest victim of this trend. The backlash was no longer just about critics. An online Latino theater coalition issued a public statement calling the production culturally irresponsible and demanding an apology. Some even hinted that protests could be coming. The pressure was building. What made it worse was how preventable it all seemed. A now deleted Instagram comment from someone claiming to be a former consultant said producers ignored the advice of Latin cultural advisors. Instead, they doubled down on bold choices with Zegler at the center. Bold, maybe, but now it looks more like reckless. As the cultural storm kept growing, another scandal was quietly unfolding backstage. People who worked on the Evita production began to speak out, and what they revealed only made things worse. According to several anonymous leaks posted to Reddit and later picked up by theater gossip pages, the rehearsal process was a disaster. One person who claimed to be a wardrobe assistant said the chaos started from day one. Nobody agreed on the tone. The script changed constantly, and everyone was walking on eggshells around Rachel. A chorus member described the vibe as tense and unstable, saying Rachel always had a wall of public relations staff around her. If someone challenged a line or scene, it was dismissed as not supporting the new vision. It did not stop there. One of the most damning posts came from someone who said they were part of the tech crew. They claimed several scenes were rewritten just days before the premiere to make them more modern and politically relevant, including the controversial new lines that outraged audiences. When crew members objected, they were reportedly told to adapt or leave. Then came the memo, a screenshot of what looked like an internally mail leaked just as the petition passed 100,000 signatures. It referenced growing concern over Rachel's ability to portray the role with cultural respect and frustration among senior creatives. If real, it confirms that internal doubts were raised and ignored. This lines up with another rumor that two creative consultants quit weeks ago in protest. Neither has confirmed it, but insiders say it is widely known backstage. With all this pressure mounting, the narrative shifted. What was once a bold reimagining now looks like a cover-up of a collapsing production. The most damning evidence, though, was not backstage. It was in the empty seats. Even before the petition went viral, there were signs the public had made up its mind. Just 3 nights after opening, photos of the theater began spreading online. Entire rows of seats were empty. A matinee performance had barely half an audience. One viral photo taken from the balcony showed more than 100 unsold seats. The caption read, "Evita the Ghost Tour." Ticket sales reportedly dropped fast after early negative reviews. One ticketing site started pushing discount codes to email subscribers just 5 days into the run. A social media user posted that they bought third-row tickets for less than a cup of coffee. It was not just about money, it was about respect. Audience reviews flooded in across blogs, Reddit, Instagram, and YouTube. The main criticism was that the show felt like a social media stunt. One reviewer said it was like watching someone rehearse a TED Talk in costume. Another said the show offended everyone, fans of the original, Latin audiences, and anyone who loves theater. The phrase self-parody started trending with Evita on TikTok. Memes mocked Rachel's performance, mixing clips of her speeches with laugh tracks. One clip called it a reality show meltdown, captioned with the phrase, "I am not dramatic, I am Evita." That video alone got 9 million views. Meanwhile, Zegler's silence was deafening. Every day without a response made her look more distant or uncaring. Fans began to feel betrayed. She stood proud while Eva Perón's legacy was turned into a meme. One user wrote that this was not empowerment, it was ego. Even her supporters began to step back. What started as a bold retelling is now seen as a cautionary tale. And according to some, the damage may already be permanent. But the story is still unfolding, because the next move might not come from fans or critics. It might come from Eva Perón's own people. Just as it seemed the backlash could not grow any bigger, a new rumor began to spread. This time, it did not come from TikTok or gossip blogs. It came from powerful voices. Several Argentine cultural institutions, including one connected to Eva's preserved archives, were reportedly preparing a public response. Not a tweet, a formal statement. A journalist based in Buenos Aires reported that the Eva Perón Foundation had received dozens of angry messages from Argentinians abroad. Many were outraged that a national hero was being reduced to what they saw as a shallow performance. According to the same report, internal talks were underway about whether to publicly denounce the production as a misrepresentation of Eva's legacy or even call for its closure. If that happens, the situation could escalate beyond internet drama into a real global controversy. This is not the first time Argentina has stepped in. Past productions of Evita have been altered or banned when cultural groups felt they crossed the line. For many, the musical is more than a show. It is history, it is memory, it is pride. Portraying Eva as a flashy influencer is not seen as creative. It is seen as offensive. That might explain why security has reportedly increased backstage. A staff member told a gossip page that protests may be coming, especially as the petition nears 150,000 signatures. They are worried that it is about to get political. At the same time, cast morale has collapsed. Some background. Actors have allegedly stopped attending rehearsals. Crew members are asking not to be scheduled. The mood inside the theater is toxic. Rachel Zegler has said nothing, but insiders claim her team is considering pulling her from the show to protect her long-term career. But the damage may already be done. Fans are walking out, and now it feels like history is too. What began as a comeback has turned into a disaster. Rachel Zegler's Evita was meant to be her redemption, a chance to move past the Snow White fallout and prove she could carry a legacy. Instead, it became a warning, a lesson in ego and what happens when cultural icons are turned into content. The petition to shut down the show was not random. It was a reaction, a breaking point. And with more than 100,000 signatures and growing, it is now more than a protest. It is a movement, a demand that real legacies be treated with care, not reduced to sound bites. Zegler's silence has only made the fire grow. Fans, critics, and even insiders are asking the same thing. Why has she said nothing? Is it pride strategy, or is she hoping it all just fades away? But this one may not go quietly. At the center of it all is not just a musical. It is the memory of a woman who meant everything to a country. And to many, that memory has been turned into a parody. This is not just backlash. It is cultural mourning. And for a show that was meant to honor Eva Perón, that may be the greatest failure of all. Whether the show survives or shuts down is still unclear. Whether Rachel steps down or speaks up is anyone's guess. But one thing is certain, the story is not over. And whatever comes next, the world will be watching.